Joining me now, Susan Del Percio, Republican strategist and senior advisor for the Lincoln Project. On Calloway, Democratic strategist and founder of the National Voter Protection Action Fund. And Michael Steele, former chair of the RNC and MSNBC political analyst. All-star lineup here. Good to have you guys. All right, Don, I'm going to begin with you because Joe Biden, as we heard, will be announcing some cabinet picks this week. Can he satisfy all parts of the Democratic Party as he rolls out these picks, or do you think there's going to be some discontent from the progressives? Is there any prediction on that?
Yeah, I think he's going to have an extraordinarily talented cabinet. And if it looks anything like the transition team, that's very exciting because the transition team is 50% people of color, and they are people of extraordinarily talented nature from all walks of life. Here are the caveats. Number one, progressives. Let's set ourselves in for reality here. Senator Warren and Senator Sanders are probably not good picks because they have Republican governors, and those Republican governors have the right to replace them from members of their own party. Remember Scott Brown in 2010 in Massachusetts. Also, I think the progressives will be extraordinarily disappointed if we see a Rahm Emanuel pick. Rahm Emanuel's term as the mayor of Chicago was defined by $500 million paid out for police abuses and killings of black and brown people throughout the city of Chicago. I think progressives would be extraordinarily disappointed if he found his way into a Biden administration. But other than that, the names I'm hearing are names that are familiar to all of us on this panel. I think the progressives and even moderate Democrats and even Republicans, sensible Republicans, would be extraordinarily happy. And I think the bottom line is you won't see any of the non-experience or the island of misfit toys that you saw in the current administration.
And listen, your points about Senators Warren and Sanders, I mean, certainly they are both lions of the Senate. But in addition, you make a really good point about Republican governors and thereby further distancing the divide, particularly if Georgia doesn't go into Democratic hands. So, Michael, to you now as we move on to the Trump camp. And the mere notion that, as articulated, we heard there by Lara Trump, would entertain going to state legislatures and effectively try to steal electors. How does that fit with respect to the Constitution?
Well, really? They're going to start caring about the Constitution now? Hey, remember that little thing called the Emoluments Clause? No, that's not an issue. That's not even going to be a factor here. This has always been part of the play, and they are systematically rolling through their game script, starting with, confusion and lawsuits. And then we're going to drill down to, election officials. We've seen them now, brought to the White House. And then, of course, the next phase will be state legislators where they think they can convince them to overthrow or, more importantly, throw out the vote of millions of Americans, and particularly black and brown Americans in cities like Philadelphia and Milwaukee and et cetera. So I think this is something that everybody just needs to continue to guard against. The courts are doing what the courts should be doing, and that is fairly, taking these cases, looking at it, asking the appropriate questions, and figuring out there's no case in controversy here. They are not presenting the evidence that they claim, and these cases are summarily being dismissed. So you're going to see these two tracks where they continue the legal effort, but now we're going to do the political backdoor game with state legislators, and woe to that legislator who agrees to throw out the votes of the citizens of their state. So we'll just leave that there.
Yeah. Susan, I want to ask you about what Chris Christie had to say, calling the Trump legal team a national embarrassment. I mean, remember, this is a guy who helped the president with debate prep. Is there a message that he's trying to send to the president with that kind of framing?
Yes, he's trying to say, stop it now. You have no proof. It's time to move on. I think that's exactly what Chris Christie was doing. And in that interview, he mentioned he voted for President Trump twice. He now thinks it's time for him to move on. Just to be fair also to the governor, he's been saying that since election night, either show us the proof or move on. And clearly, some Republicans are ready to move on, but not nearly enough. And I'm hoping that will change tomorrow once we see the certification of Michigan and Pennsylvania happen. That will take everything off the table and then put even more pressure on Emily Murphy, the General Service Administrator, to actually provide transitional services to President-elect Biden.
Dawn, okay, I don't want to make this too easy for you, but I don't know how to phrase it. So it's challenging to a Democrat who is a lawyer like yourself. How about you? What do you make of the legal team? Is there any bit of ground for them to stand on with their legal challenges?
No. So these claims are what we would consider specious. That is a word that goes back centuries in the practice of law, specious and non-meritorious. So I want to make a distinction here between what Rudy Giuliani and these folks who are going on television are saying on Fox News and in the crazier networks, and what they're saying in courtrooms. What they're saying in courtrooms is going to result in exactly what happened with Judge Michael Brand yesterday in Pennsylvania, who, by the way, is a Federalist and lifelong Republican who's from the same Federalist Society as Amy Coney Barrett, although he was an Obama appointee. But those decisions are going to eviscerate these legal arguments because there essentially are none. And I think that the lawyers know that there are none. Perhaps they're doing it out of some type of loyalty to the Republican Party and what that gets them down the road. But you cannot make non-meritorious and specious arguments as an officer of the court because you have a legal career to protect and you got kids to feed, as we would say in the hood. So one thing is happening on TV in front of microphones, but a completely different thing is being said in these briefs. And there are no meritorious arguments, at least that I've seen thus far, in these case files.
Okay, great answer there. Michael, to you now, with the RNC chair, Ronna McDaniel, sending this letter yesterday that was seeking to clarify delay certifying the results in Michigan. As the former RNC chair yourself, Michael, what do you make of McDaniel and the RNC, in fact, attaching themselves to Trump's baseless claims?
Well, it's unfortunate. Ronna was a good chair of the state when she was chairwoman there. She's tried to navigate and manage the very delicate balance between the party's independence and the Trump campaign in the White House. That clearly has not worked. So this is just a continuation of that. And it's unfortunate because the reality of it is, and there's stories out now talking about the Trump operation wanting to, hold on to the RNC after this election is over for purposes of either setting up the 24 election for president or for Don Jr. There are members who are concerned about that, and Ronna's got to deal with that. This is not a way to create that separation by signing on to the disenfranchisement of, let's be specific here, black voters in the city of Detroit. Yeah. Because that's essentially what you're doing. And so you then can't come out and say, we want your vote. Oh, why? So you can take it away from us?
Hey, Michael, can I just pick up on what you said about Donald Trump 2024 and Don Jr. potentially? I had Anthony Scaramucci on the show yesterday, who knows Donald Trump very, very well, and he said not a chance in hell will he run in 2024. He just said there's no way. But what do you think about the prospect of that realistically? And I mean, Don Jr.?
Well, I agree with the Mooch. I agree with Anthony that Trump is not going to run in 2024. But what this does by putting out there that, oh, I may do that, it freezes the field. It tries to cement in the control we were just talking about, not just over the apparatus of the RNC, but the way the party moves forward after Trump. He wants them to move forward in a Trumpian way. He wants to position his son for leadership either inside the party or more nationally as a candidate for office in 24. So there are a number of tactics that are going on here. It's meeting with some resistance inside the RNC, but by a very small number of folks. But outside the party, more importantly, there's just not going to be this energy around turning this back over to Trump, the president in 24. Okay. Trump Jr. is something different.
So I'm going to leave that there for the moment because, Don, I just want to ask you, is part of the reason that Republicans are not speaking out more vociferously against Donald Trump and the grasp that he has on the Republican Party because he has truly built a coalition within the Republican Party that it is indeed hard to separate now Trumpism from Republicanism?
Yeah, that's the full reason. I mean, I think that everyone is well aware that Trumpism will outlast Trump. But the reality is that he was a symptom of where the Republican Party had gone since 2010, and even before that with the Southern strategy of Reagan, and even before him, Atwater and all those guys. He is a manifestation of that. That does not go away just because he leaves office. He got the second most votes of any presidential candidate in history. That's why he's not being summarily rejected. I just want to say really quickly, if 10 years ago, the national television had been buzzing about Don Jr. running for president, my mom and them would have been really excited.
So, Susan, last word to you. So, essentially, this is all about the extra votes that have now come under the Republican tent.
Yes, but again, I think we have to see what happens once President Trump leaves the Oval Office and what his influence truly will be. I think we're going to learn a lot of things that went on during his tenure that we're not even aware of yet. He faces civil and criminal investigations in New York State. And on top of that, we're actually going to see governance again as a nation. And we're going to see under the Biden administration, people actually doing their jobs, which may also put some faith back into how important it is to govern. And frankly, I also think there are a lot of Republican leaders who are happy to see Donald Trump go, and they would like to see the backside of them. They just can't estimate yet how much control he will have on the party. It will be some, but will it be enough?
Susan Del Percio, Don Calloway, Michael Steele. Good to see you guys. Have a great holiday week. Thank you so much.